In this lesson we're going to look at adding and subtracting basic fractions. Okay, so in this first question we've got 3/8 plus 2/8. Now you can add fractions really easily if the denominators are the same, i.e. the numbers at the bottom are exactly the same. So in this case I've got 3/8 and I've got 2 more of them. That means I've got 5 of them. So I've got 5/8. A common mistake is to add the 8 and 8 and create 16ths. If you're adding 8ths, you're adding things of the same size, so you must have more things of the same size. 16ths are smaller. It becomes a wee bit more tricky when you're adding things with a different denominator, i.e. a different number at the bottom. Now what you have to do here is you have to try and get a common denominator, a denominator where both numbers can divide into. And then you can just do what we did in the part A here. Now, the lowest common multiple is the number you're trying to get here. So what's the lowest common multiple of 4 and 5? Well, the lowest number they both divide into is 20. So what you can do is you can say, well, I've got something over 20 plus something over 20. And what I'm trying to do is create an equivalent fraction. I'm trying to create a quarter as 20ths. And to do that, you're really doing 4 times 5 to get 20. Now whatever you do to the bottom number, to create an equivalent fraction, you must do it to the top. So if we're doing 4 times 5, you must do 1 times 5 to get the top number. So 1 quarter is equal to 5/20 just by timesing by 5. Some people find it easier to look at it like this. You're timesing this by 5 and then you're timesing up by 5. Okay, and another side, well, to get from 5 to 20 I'm timesing by 4. So do exactly the same to the top. So you can have timesing across by 4 and then you're timesing up by 4. And what that does is that creates 4 over 20 on the other side. Now that we've got our common denominator, we can just add the top numbers. So we've got 9 over 20 and that's you finished. Okay, let's look at this last one in the top here. 2/3 take away 3/8. So the lowest common multiple of 3 and 8 will give you your common denominator, and 3 and 8 both divide into 24. So you're looking for 24ths. Notice there's a takeaway here as well. Okay, well, how do you get from 3 to 24 to create an equivalent fraction? You're multiplying by 8. So we're kind of taking this 8 and we're multiplying across here to get 24. Do the same, 8 times 2, and you're getting 16. So 2/3 is the same as 16 over 24. Okay, then we move on to the 8. You say 8 times what makes 24? So 8 times 3. So you kind of timesing across by the 3 here. So do exactly the same to the top. So it's 3 3s are 9. So that's going to be 9. Now remember there's a takeaway there, it's really easy to add if you've been doing adding sums. 16 take away 9 is 7. So the answer is 7 over 24. Now I'm going to look at 3 more examples here. The technique above would work for these, but the lowest common multiple is not gained by multiplying the 2 denominators. In the cases above, we've got the lowest common multiple by doing 4 times 5 and 3 times 8. These ones, you can get a lower number that they both divide into. In this case, both of these numbers, the lowest common multiple is 6. So 2 divides into 6 and so does 6. So I'm actually going to leave the 5 over 6 alone. I only really need to change the half into 6ths. How do I do that? Well, I times 2 by 3 to get my 6 in the bottom. So I must do exactly the same to the top, let's times it by 3. So a half is really just the same as 3 out of 6. I've got my common denominator now. I can add the 3 and the 5 in the top and get 8 over 6. Okay, to finish this off, you want to change it into a mixed number. So 8 over 6, that will cancel down to 4 over 3, and that will cancel down to 1 1/3. 3 goes into 4 once with 1 remainder. Okay, Now again, looking at the 4 and 8, you could go for 30 seconds, but again, there's no need here. They both divide into 8, so I'm going to keep the 5/8 as it is, and I'm going to change the quarters into eighths. So I double up on that, so times by 2, so I need to do the same to the top. This becomes 6. If I add them together, I get 11 eighths, and again, change it into a mixed number. 8 goes into 11 one time, with a remainder of 3, so 3 eighths left over. And finally, on the last one, the lowest common multiple of 12 and 3 is just 12. 12 divides into 12, and 3 also divides into 12. So I'm going to leave that as it is, and I'm going to make the thirds into twelfths. How do I do that? Well, I times 3 by 4 to get 12, and I need to do the same to the top number here. So that gives me 8. Now you can get negative fractions, just like you get negative numbers, so just do the top 7, take away 8, and that gives you negative 1 over 12. Okay, to finish off this lesson, we're just going to look at what happens when you have to add more than one fraction together. Well, the same idea, you're looking for the lowest common multiple of all the numbers here. So you want to look at the 2, the 3 and the 6 and think, what number do they all divide into? And the answer is 6, so I can change them all into sixths. And then once I've done that, it's a dead easy fix to add them all together. Right, okay, so we'll start with the 2 here. So what do I do to 2 to get to 6? Times by 3, and you can see it's rubbed out already. 1 times 3 is 3. How do you get from thirds to sixths? You double. So do the same to the top, 4. And we're already in sixths here. So now you can just add the top numbers and see how many sixths you have all together. So 5 and 4 makes 9. Add the 3, you get 12. And 12 divided by 6 is just 2. Okay, let's look at the last example. So I'm looking for the lowest common multiple of 2, 5 and 10. Now all these numbers divide into 10, so it's tenths I'm going for. Now I know I'm not going to change the 4 tenths, so I'll just leave that like that. Now let's start at the start again then. So how do I get from halves to tenths? Times by 5. So do the same to the top, that's going to become 5 tenths. How do you get from fifths to tenths? You double it, or times by 2, do the same to the top. And all I need to do now is add and subtract the top. So 5 tenths adds 6 tenths, that's 11 tenths. And I want to take away 4, and that leaves me with 7 tenths.